I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the Chief Executive of the PDC, Matt Porter. Really appreciate your time, Matt. How you doing?
I'm fine, thanks, Alex. Yeah, all good.
Now, we're talking less than 24 hours after the Summer Series conclusion. The Darts League are back up and running with 5 Players' Championship events last week. Leaving Milton Keynes, how did you feel the week went overall?
Yeah, I was really pleased, actually. I mean, number one was it was good to give the guys a chance to come back and play competitively against each other face-to-face, so to speak, again. And number two, operationally, it was good to see a plan coming together, because it was a logistical challenge to get it up and running with everything, with the testing, the social distancing and all the new procedures that we put in place. But the staff were excellent, and the players' approach was fantastic. They were professional, they were understanding, and they respected the rules, and it was good. It was a credit to darts.
And we had your tournament director, Graham Fairhurst, on the show a few weeks ago, looking ahead to the resumption of the tour under the bubble setting. Yourself arriving in Milton Keynes, being tested, the quarantine, the whole operation leading into the event. How were you feeling before play started? Was there any apprehension at all? Were you confident that you got everything covered and it would be okay?
Yeah, we were confident that the procedures were in place. It's just how they were applied that would have been the challenge. But, as I say, everybody followed them well. Fortunately, we didn't have any positive tests. That would have obviously presented its own challenge. But it ran as well as could be expected. Obviously, a couple of guys had to leave early for different reasons, nothing to do with COVID or anything like that. Obviously, everyone can have their own personal issues that crop up from time to time. But we got through it.
The pandemic obviously shut everything down for the last few months. These were the first ranking events in close to 4 months. At what point, though, did you guys, the PDC, start to consider putting events on again with the bubble? Could you have done it earlier, or was this the right time for you?
We could have potentially done it a little bit earlier, but I don't think it would have made a huge difference. The fundamental purpose of those events was to finalise the qualification process for the World Matchplay. So whether we'd have done them second week of July, first week of July, last week of June, wouldn't have really, made any difference. So we wanted to give players maximum amount of chance to make their preparations, particularly overseas players. We knew that the quarantine situation was going to change. We'd hoped it was going to change before the event. As it was, it sort of changed during it, but we made sure with our communication with government that everything was cleared for everybody to enter the country. So that was made more straightforward by it being a little bit later, and I think there were 50 of the 128 players had to get on an aeroplane to get here, so that was an important consideration as well.
You mentioned a few bits there, but obviously a lot of hoops to jump through to get these events on last week. In the planning stages leading up to the return, what would you say were the toughest challenges you guys faced in particular to getting the Summer Series on?
Well, yeah, I mean, the issue with getting overseas players in was one. Obviously, the venue layout, we had one-way systems and allocated practice boards, social distancing, plenty of signage, all those sort of things. That they were a challenge. The Marshall Arena is a great venue for us. The Masters does very well there in January, and we know that they can stage tour events there. We've had qualifiers and pro tour events there and secondary tour events, so we know that can work. So that was good, really. And as I say, everybody had the attitude of let's get back to work. So it worked.
Over the last 24 hours or so, we've seen a lot of positive feedback from players, fans about how the Summer Series went. Just, I suppose it could be a little bit of a happy accident, a bit like with the contenders in the Premier League. Is this something maybe you might try and do next year with the 5 Players Championship events before the cut-off for the World Matchplay?
Yeah, possibly. Whether they're just before the World Matchplay or another time or whatever, doesn't really make a huge difference. The key for us is to deliver as many Players Championship events as we can. We try to do 30 a year. We do 30 a year. Obviously this year that might be more of a challenge, but if it means that it's easier to stage events, then it might be something we look at again. The key will obviously be how long we have to keep a bubble or a sort of semi-bubble type scenario in place, and how long before we can go back to just doing the weekends where people can turn up on the day and play. There's all those factors to bear in mind that will impact on the future landscape of our tournament calendar.
And we've had a few questions come in from our listeners and some from a few players as well, and from a player's point of view that are not involved in the World Matchplay or the Premier League. When are they likely to hear about plans for the next events on the PDC calendar?
Well, Premier League will be this week. We will confirm what's happening with the first few events that were due to be scheduled there. We're working on that now. And then, the others will be as and when they're ready. It's not a question of us holding information back. We are working hard, and we will only make decisions to cancel events when we know for sure that they can't take place.
And some events that have been cancelled or moved, a lot involving the European Tour. Just with regards to the qualifiers that did take place before the lockdown, is there any plans for those? Are they going to be null and void, or is there plans to keep them moving forward?
No, I mean, we will try to reschedule as many events as we can before we run out of time. Clearly, our calendar runs on our year runs on a kind of calendar basis, so it's difficult for us to hold something over to next year. That doesn't really make a huge amount of sense, because obviously the next incarnation of that event comes around and the tours start again and things like that. So the aim will be to get events played in the second half of the year as best we can, and if we can't, then unfortunately they will have to be cancelled.
A couple on the Challenge Tour and the Development Tour. I know you guys put out an update early this month on the future of both of those seasons. Are you hopeful of getting some events on before the end of the year with those two?
Yeah, hopefully. As I mentioned in the previous sort of answer, a lot of it will depend on if there's a bubble requirement. If there is, then it's going to be difficult to stage those events. It's extremely costly. It puts a lot of time pressure on players and things like that. So, it's going to be difficult to do those tours in a bubble environment. But we'll see. How long we would need to do that for, and when normality might return.
Arguably the biggest event involving those two tours, in particular the Development Tour, is the World Youth Championship. Is there a possibility we'll see a bubble environment with 64, 96 players to get that event on?
Possibly, yeah. We're concentrating at the moment on what's due to be happening over the next few weeks. That's clearly our priority. So I'm not saying we've forgotten the other stuff, but it's pointless to plan. You have to plan chronologically. You can't plan something that's due to take place in the latter half of the year before you've planned what's due to take place before it. So, the picture is ever changing. At the moment, the restrictions are becoming less onerous. So, if that keeps happening, then it will make staging these other events more straightforward. Yeah,
that's completely understandable. A lot of short-term planning at the moment, but obviously the World Matchplay coming up this weekend is behind closed doors in terms of your big week-plus long events. This is the first one to come up on the calendar since the pandemic broke out, but realistically at the moment, how long can the PDC continue with no spectators for these big events?
As long as we need to, really. We've been prudent in the past with finances. We've got reserves which are there for reasons like this, so we can carry on paying full prize money and paying staff wages and all the costs that go with putting events on. So that's that's not a short-term problem for us. But listen, if we're having this conversation in 2 years' time or whatever, then it's the whole world will be in a different position. It won't just be the PDC. But we've got no issues at the moment.
And you touched on about the Premier League as well, so I won't ask you about that with the announcement coming up. So we'll go back to the World Matchplay really to finish, starting this Saturday, live on Sky Sports here in the UK. Obviously, we know it's going to be played with a stage. We assume the walk-on to the ref, that's all going to be the same. But what else have the PDC and Sky got planned to make it look and feel as normal as possible, given the lack of crowd there?
Well, there'll be artificial crowd noise, which we'll also play into the hall. I think it'll make it a better atmosphere inside the hall than if it was just deathly silent and echoey. So that'll probably try and make everybody a little bit more relaxed. And we will have a video wall behind the players, which we'll have some content on, and some banners around just to try and liven up the appearance, really, because we don't want it to look sterile, even though it'll be played in a relatively sterile environment. We want the players to react and engage and show some emotion as best they can in that kind of situation. And we want the viewing public at home to feel like they're watching a real event as much as they can.
And I know it was different circumstances, but obviously you've got a little bit of experience in the past with the UK Open 2 years ago, ended up being virtually behind closed doors. Are there things that you guys have looked back on from that event, things that went well, things that didn't go well, that you can take into this weekend?
I mean, that was obviously a different scenario because it was very last minute, that, and to be honest, at the time our focus was actually on getting the event on. Because of the difficult circumstances, there being a lot of snow around and power problems and water problems and things like that. So that was a different challenge to what we're facing now, where logistically this event is easy to put on as a darts event. It's everything that goes around it that presents the challenge. So we didn't have opportunity back in Minehead to put any sort of fake atmosphere in or anything like that, because it was so short, so sort of last minute. But we'll see how it goes, and if we do something and it doesn't seem to work, we'll change it, and just evolve the offer. Unfortunately, Sky have had a fair bit of practice with the football that's been going on, so we'll see how we go.
Lastly, before we let you go, I wanted to give you a chance to say a few words about Dave Clark. Obviously fronted Sky's coverage of the darts for a long time, and Sunday evening announcing that he's going to be stepping down from the role. A lot of lovely comments and tributes to him pouring in since then. Two parts to this question really. What legacy do you think he'll leave in your opinion? And I know it's still very early, but any plans to name a trophy after him?
Yeah, I mean, Dave has been the face of PDC darts for the British viewing public for 2 decades now, and he was loved by everybody. He's loved by everybody who works on the events. He's popular with the players. He was good to be around socially, and of course he was knowledgeable, so people respected his opinion, and he judged it right. I mean, you have to see the reactions that he got from crowds, particularly in Leeds when he went on stage. That was great. And what's sort of good about this is that it was Dave's decision, made at the right time for him. Obviously he's had a lot of time to reflect, as we all have, whilst we've not been working on regular events, and he's decided that with a family to travel the world with, now's the time for him to do it. So good luck to him, and I hope it's a very exciting new chapter for him. As someone I'm very proud to have worked alongside. For 1998 I first worked alongside him when we were both doing local radio, so 22 years ago. And obviously on the darts and the boxing, the pool, other matchroom content for the last 15 or so years. So he's someone who I've known for a long time, and I think he's an outstanding sports broadcaster and more importantly, an outstanding person.
Definitely is. Well, Matt, it's always a pleasure to get you on the show, and I know it's a busy time for you at the moment, so I appreciate you taking out a few minutes to have a chat with us.
You're very welcome.
Well done on last week, and wish you all the best for the World Matchplay.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks to all your listeners and the nice comments that they've made about us over the last few weeks have not gone unnoticed. So we appreciate what PDC fans have acknowledged in recent times.